Memphis, Ja and the Grizzlies, Steph and the Warriors. We begin with the drama. Late second quarter. You've seen it by now. Draymond Green thrown out for a flagrant 2. What'd you think of the call?
Didn't like it at all. I just felt like neither one of those acts to me were intentional enough or egregious enough to add up to a flagrant 2, particularly in a playoff game. I didn't like it.
You will hear from him directly a little later. That's how he left the court. All right, to the fourth quarter we go. What a game this was. Warriors up 1. And the shot-making legs was spectacular.
Yeah, Jordan Poole, what a weapon he has given them. Goes from a role player a year ago to a guy now putting up 25, 30 a night in postseason games.
He had 31 off the bench, and then it's Ja, spectacular in the lane. He had 34. Next Warriors possession, it's Steph.
Yeah, huge step back. Gets the switch. Jaren Jackson, one of the best perimeter defenders for a big in the league, couldn't quite get the separation.
And then it's the Grizzlies on the break. Notice Ja continues to go to the left hand. Just file that away in the back of your mind. Here we go again. Ja, left side of the basket. Grizzlies up a deuce. Under 40 seconds to play. This time it's Klay Thompson. He did not have a good night, but he knocks this one down.
Enormous 3. Great up fake there to get Bane to fly by. Goes back to his left. He struggled all night, but came through when they needed him.
And then it's Ja Morant again. And once again, he's fighting through traffic, but look at Steph with the big play.
Great strip from behind. Ja taking it into traffic, expecting to get that call, but you take a look at the replay. That's all ball by Steph Curry. Warriors come up with the loose ball.
Grizzlies were forced to foul. They took forever to do it, by the way. And then Klay goes to the line. He missed the first. He misses them both. It's unbelievable. And then the ball goes out of bounds, and the refs can't decide who touched it, and it's not reviewable. So we're going to go to a jump ball, which is ridiculous. And the Grizzlies wind up winning that. They call a timeout, and here's the play. Remember, they go left. Morant goes left. Klay remembered it, and he gets redemption. Klay Thompson with a great defensive play, despite missing the free throws. And Draymond is there saying, thanks for bailing me out, guys. The Warriors, a 1-point win in an absolute thriller. Morant, part of the conversation when it was all over.
I missed the layup I normally make all the time. On to the next, though.
Oof, big sigh of relief. I mean, you don't want to be the guy that misses the go-ahead free throws, and that was me. So I just wanted to take it all in, soak it all in, even because I know it's not the championship, but it's still a huge win for us.
It's not the championship, but somehow it kind of felt like it. Let's dive into the game, and then we'll dive into the Draymond of it all. Again, Wendy is up with us early here. What's your number one takeaway from what was an absolute thrilling finish yesterday in Memphis? Wendy.
It was a huge missed opportunity for the Grizzlies. The Warriors had a tight window when they could prepare. They had to fly in immediately and play. Then Draymond gets ejected in the first half. This is a game the Grizzlies have to have. You showed that Klay Thompson 3 that was really the final points of the game. That was their 5th shot of that possession, even without Draymond Green. And the Warriors having to play without one of their best rebounders. They couldn't get a defensive rebound in that situation. Obviously, it was a great play at the end, but a huge disappointment for Memphis not to be up 1-0 in the series at this point.
Legs, bearing in mind all the things that we just saw, what's the number one takeaway from the game?
To echo Wendy, if they didn't win this game, Memphis, they're not winning this series. This is a game you have to have. Draymond Green gets thrown out in the first half. You get the benefit of the doubt on that late call when they called the jump ball. That clearly went off Dillon Brooks. That should have been Golden State's basketball. Yep. You get a rough night out of Klay Thompson, including missing 2 enormous free throws, and you still don't win that game at home. For me, that's one you absolutely have to have for momentum. The problem now is, look, Jordan Poole has arrived at such a level, you don't need great nights out of Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. That's the thing. One of those guys can be off on a given night because you've got another weapon capable of doing what he's doing right now. For me, that's a major difference maker for Golden State.
I'll give you credit. You were the one who said to me, he absolutely should have won Most Improved Player. You were telling me that Poole deserved that award when we were doing our votes, and he has shown it. In this postseason, he has stepped up huge. Now, obviously, the storyline, or one of the major storylines, was the ejection of Draymond Green. You saw him leave the court in the sort of Draymond way in which he did. Then he was hugging everybody afterwards. Then he left without talking to the media, went back to the hotel, and recorded a podcast. Here's what he said about the ejection.
I think tonight was probably a reputation thing more so than a hard foul. By definition, if we go through the definition of a flagrant 2 foul, I'm not sure that play would quite be the definition of a flagrant foul. I'm not sure it would meet that criteria.
So that's what he said. Wendy, what do you say?
Well, from one hotel room to another, Kane Fitzgerald, the lead referee in this game, gave an interview afterwards and said, in fact, by definition, it did. There was a wind-up, and then there was a pull-down, unnecessary and excessive. They just went bullet points by the rule, consulted with the league in office in Secaucus, and verified the decision. Now, from a practical matter, to eject a player of Draymond Green's value in the first quarter of a playoff game in something that isn't as clear, that to me doesn't feel right. But Draymond's argument is being used back against him in his face about the definition.
Legs, you mentioned it. You did not think it rose to that level there in that specific situation. Draymond said he thinks it's a reputation thing. We all know his reputation precedes him to some degree. What do you think?
I think he's probably right about that, and I think I have a problem because the definition of a windup, you got to explain this to me. He slid over, his arm was already up, and he just swiped down. It's obvious he's trying to swipe down on his arm, and he's just happened to catch part of his face. And to me, a lot of times these fouls, it's based on the result of what happens to the player. A lot of times, there was nothing even wrong with Brandon Wright. He was laid there for a second just trying to get his thoughts together. He was perfectly fine. To me, the more egregious of the two was the jersey grab. Right. Because that can be a dangerous play. Guy's up in the air and you rip his jersey and the guy's off balance. You could catch yourself kind of funny when you land. But I didn't think the slap down on the arm, to call that a wind-up, I think to me is where they missed this. And to throw a guy to a playoff game for that, to me, was really surprising, and I just thought a little bit over the top.
I want one more quick thing from Windy here. Remind everybody of the significance of the two pieces of this. He's now got 2 flagrant points in this postseason. Very quickly, Windy, why is that important?
Yeah, and this is what Draymond was doing on this podcast. He's campaigning for it to be downgraded in review because in 2016, when he was suspended, it was for accumulation of flagrant foul points. You get 4, you're suspended. He now has 2. He's appealing to get that reduced. We'll see what the league office says today.
That's an important piece of all of this because if they're going to get where they want to go, they still have a lot of games left to play. He's got a lot of fouls left to commit. Okay, so that was the late game yesterday, and it was unbelievable. The early game was equal.
Channel 80 and your smart speakers.
Jay, what up, Key? What's happening? Got a question, a basketball question for you.
Talk to me, baby.
So, if the Warriors win it in the West. Okay, if the Warriors go to the Western Conference Final, what's a better place for me to take my son? The Warriors versus, let's say, the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference Final, or the Warriors and whoever comes out of the East to go to that game?
So anybody would say probably if the Warriors and the Bucks meet, if like NBA Finals. But Key, like knowing you, what you like to see, I would put a lot of value if it were Warriors Suns just for the CP3 Steph Curry feud. Like just that rivalry between those two in itself, like that would be worth the price of admission if you're asking. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Yes.
Plus the travel, because if the Warriors playing the Bucks, I'm going to San Fran.
Exactly.
You know, I don't really want to. It's nothing against Milwaukee. I just don't want to have to travel. You know, if I don't need to.
You going to the whole series?
No, just a game. Just my son.
He's dope though.
My son wants to go to a game, but we're trying to figure out if it's the Warriors and the Suns.
But then either way, you're going to go to San Fran, right?
Not necessarily because
if
Phoenix plays them in the conference, I'd rather go to Phoenix or to San Francisco. If the Warriors wind up playing,
definitely going to San Fran.
If they wind up playing somebody else, I might wait for the championship. If they play Boston or Miami or even Philadelphia, I may want to see the Warriors in Philadelphia in one of those eastern towns or eastern cities.
Oh no,
so to speak.